Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest podcast. I am Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs and Rob Lewis. Every Tuesday we do this, the Volquest podcast. We'll have the mailbag podcast on Thursday, so go ahead and get those questions in. Brent will have a thread on the board sometime tomorrow, and we'll be taking your questions, but we do it every single week. And fall camp, getting ready to get going next week. Can you believe it? It has been... Feels like a long off season. Maybe it's been super long for some. At least with baseball, it just kind of flies by for me. But fall camp, media day is next Tuesday. Fall camp starts on Wednesday. And the race for the 2025 football season is just around the corner, so looking forward to that. Going to break down a couple different things today. The SEC predicted order of finish, some all-SEC Vols. Give a little bit of a summer update. Where is this team heading into fall camp? And Tennessee gets its second international commit of the offseason. We'll talk about all that and more right here on the Volquest podcast. We'll start right there with the predicted order of finish that came out at the tail end of SEC Media Days from the Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, the College Football Hall of Fame. It was Friday afternoon. Tennessee predicted to finish 9th in the Southeastern Conference for the 2025 season. Again, take it for what it is. I mean, Josh Heupel seems to finish higher than that expectation 3 of the 4 seasons that he's been the head coach here. But Brent Hubbs, surprised, just about right. What are your thoughts on 9th preseason-wise in the SEC?
I think I've said this a couple of times. Maybe it's on a different radio show, but I mean, I think you got a clear-cut top 4, and then after that, I think it's kind of a hodgepodge. I think it's kind of all jumbled up because nobody really knows their quarterback situation when you throw it all together. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Ole Miss, and rightfully so. A lot of people like Ole Miss, but they're replacing Jackson Dart. What exactly does that look like? I know they've got transfers, and Lane's got like 8 on his roster or whatever he ended up with, but I don't know exactly what they're going to look like there. I think when you look at this, you take LSU and put them in the top 4 because they're bringing Nussmeier back, right, Rob? And then I think you look at Alabama in year 2, even though there's a new quarterback there, I think they're right in probably that cusp of 3 and 4, somewhere there. With the rest of the parts that they have coming back. And then I think you've got Georgia and Texas as the top 2. After that, I think it's much more jumbled. I think it's much closer between 5 and 9 or even 10. I think once you get past Oklahoma, I think there's another dividing line there. But I think Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida, South Carolina, I think those can be jumbled up and mixed up in a variety of different ways. I think those kind of 4 or 5 teams there are pretty clumped together to me, Rob.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think probably a lot of preseason polls work this way, but I think this year's more dramatic in the SEC. But if you look at every single team that's picked in front of Tennessee, 7 of them have a starter coming back at quarterback, and the other 2 know who their starter is going to be, and Ole Miss and Bama. So I mean, I wouldn't say that's the only reason those 8 teams are on the left, but it's a big reason. And me having just got done with all the previews for the conference opponents and stuff, that just jumps out. I mean, and I think it's more important. I don't know if I'd say it's more important than it used to be, but it kind of feels that way because I mean, so few rosters are stacked, with 3 or 4 quarterbacks that you've recruited, and are developing. Or at least it seems that way in the transfer portal era. You don't have that pipeline like you maybe had, traditionally at quarterback. But to me, that's what jumps out about the SEC picks, just right there. Like you got eight teams on the left that at least know who their quarterbacks are going to be, and 6 of them have starters coming back.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the 5 through 10, going back to what you said, Brent, is you can make a case that there could be 5 different variations of that. Florida with DJ Lagway, everybody's kind of high on him. Florida's got a good roster. Florida always has a good roster. South Carolina maybe getting the benefit of the doubt for Lenore Sellers. Preseason first team, all SEC quarterback, and they've got Dylan Stewart, really good defensive lineman, really talented there. Maybe getting the benefit of the doubt there because of those 2 star players. I would have flipped A&M and Ole Miss for sure, just because you give the benefit of the doubt to a guy that's at least played in this league. But again, maybe voters know what Lane Kiffin's done in this league the last couple of years, and so they kind of have him a peg above A&M. And then I think Tennessee could find its way in the middle of all that. But back to what Rob said as well, Tennessee. Again, from the outside looking in, you lose the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, first-round draft pick on the defensive line, your quarterback, Nico, the last day of spring ball. This team went to the playoffs last year. Like, from the outside looking in, it's not a shocker to me whatsoever that Tennessee's kind of in the back end of that grouping. And I am kind of surprised that Oklahoma is coming in there at number 10. A couple of running backs from the transfer portal, John Mateer, bringing back a ton of starters. We're so injury-plagued a season ago. Again, preseason standings, they don't mean anything. They really don't. But I think from 5 to 10, you could really just kind of make the case of 5 or 6 different variations.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, a lot of those people that vote on that deal don't. And they just write down names. Like, they haven't really dove into it.
Somebody voted Vanderbilt SEC champ.
You mean to tell me that South Carolina, the 5 people voted South Carolina, that 5 people believe South Carolina can win the SEC? Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I don't put a whole lot of stock in it. But if I'm Josh Heupel, I put a ton of stock in it with my team.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's saying that nobody believes in you. I mean, it just further fuels the chip on your shoulder. So I think if you're Josh Heupel, you use it as plenty of motivation for your team and take it as a win that's where you're projected, knowing that those things don't matter. I mean, I think if you did a history of it, Rob, I mean, it's not like they get it right. Because it's just a guess.
I mean, you guys know as well as I mean, a lot of people in our jobs take that stuff seriously and will spend, an hour or two, really thinking about it or making phone calls. Tons of people do. Oh my God, I can get my ballot in. Yeah. Here's 16 teams.
Yep, no doubt. And so that's why you don't, again, as fans, I don't think you put stock in it, but when you're a coach looking for every edge you can get, you certainly make note of it and try to use it to help your football team, particularly when you think you're maybe have a chance to be better than where you're slotted by a lot of people. So,
and I tell you one thing I do agree with. I don't know about the order, but those bottom 4 after doing the conference opponent previews, I think the bottom 4 look about right.
And again, like if you're looking at Tennessee from a not us from a national perspective, but people who'd be voting on this in Atlanta or whatever, like I think people forget Tennessee's schedule. Look at Tennessee's schedule. You play Mississippi State, you play Kentucky, you play Arkansas, you play Vanderbilt, you play Oklahoma. I mean, again, the schedule lines up in your favor. You still have to go to Florida and Alabama, and that's going to be incredibly tough. You still have to play Georgia at home week 3. I mean, Oklahoma, I think that's going to be a tough game in November, but the schedule lines up for you to where if you play good defense, run the football, don't turn it over a ton of the quarterback position, you're going to win a lot of games.
You're starting off 4-4 in the SEC.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. At worst case is what you're saying, right, Rob? Yeah. At worst case, that's where you are before you ever go to the practice.
I mean, unless something has gone horribly, horribly wrong, you're 4-4 at bottom line, worst case scenario in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's interesting is both Tennessee and Oklahoma. When you look at that, I think both teams have a chance to be better than what a lot of people think. And I think both of them can be sort of what people think they might be, right? Like, I mean, I think Oklahoma is a pretty fascinating deal. Like, you look at their schedule, if you're watching on YouTube. I mean, that's a tough hoe. I mean, that's a tough road.
Michigan week 2.
Yeah, you got Michigan week 2. You got Texas on there, obviously. The South Carolina game, Ole Miss. I mean, I'm going to be fascinated to see where Oklahoma is when they get to Knoxville. Are they rolling? Have they figured it out and put it all together? Or is that more talk about, Venables in trouble, they don't have an AD, is Bob Stoops going to make the hire? Like, what's that going to look like out there? That type of thing. Oklahoma is and this is not an Oklahoma podcast, but I find them very interesting because, Venables gets up at the podium and goes like 20 minutes or whatever before did he ever take a question at the podium at SEC Media Day? Because he basically filibustered for about 20 minutes. And then they brought their GM, Jim Nagy, who is the former Senior Bowl guy, and like he ran everything for Oklahoma in Atlanta. Like, he was as big of everybody's trying to talk to him as much as they were trying to talk to Brent Venables. And so that whole dynamic is going to be pretty fascinating for me to see it unfold, Rob, as the season goes along for them.
I was just going to, not, as you said, not an Oklahoma podcast, but it's an interesting year for them because of what's happened with, how it's been a little rocky for Venables. I have a hard time seeing it's make or break, but if they completely go off the rails, maybe. But their November schedule, out of 3 of the 4, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU. But he's, thanks a lot. And after you play Michigan in week 2, that's.
Look at the last 7 games, Rob. I mean, starting on the 11th of October.
Yeah, start with Texas, but your last, 3 of your last 4, Texas, Bama, at Bama, who won't pay back. That's going to be a tough November for Oklahoma.
Yeah, it will be for sure.
Well, and here's the thing for them that's a little bit, if you kind of look at it from an SEC standpoint, that's pretty fascinating. I mean, they're one of the newcomers, and Texas is the other newcomer. And clearly for Texas, the transition into the SEC has gone well in all sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's gone well. Oklahoma, I mean, softball's gone well because they're elite in softball. But, I mean, the rest of it, I mean, basketball was rough, right, Rob? I mean, that was not great for them. There's a lot of preseason hype about them in basketball that didn't lead to what some people thought.
I mean, I don't remember this exactly, but weren't they were like 13-0. I mean, I don't know what they played in the conference, pre-conference, but they won whatever tournament they played in November. They were 13-0, and then they were just were garbage in play.
And so, and you know, for them, I don't think it's just football. I think for them and their fan base, it's a little bit of, can we get our sea legs in this league, because they don't have their sea legs facility-wise, financially. Now the AD who made this move and got you in the league, he's retiring, which is not a shock. He's been there forever, you know. So they're in an interesting transition.
And Texas goes to the playoffs.
Yeah, and Texas has got more money than everybody else has, and you know they're in the playoff, and you know they've got, you know, they got to get basketball right. But I mean, they weren't terrible in basketball. But I mean, they feel much more solid compared to where Oklahoma is as they transition into the league in year 2.
I mean, I know they're not because of their tradition, the facilities, whatever. But right now, I mean, if you're a 20-something-year-old SEC fan and don't know the history, Oklahoma feels a little bit like Missouri. Sorry, you know, but that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue if you're 18, 19 years old, for sure. There's not been a whole lot of recent history there, especially in a lot of the sports that, you know, football, basketball, some of the non-revenue sports or the revenue-generating sports. In case you're keeping track at home, Texas, 96 points to win the league, Georgia 44, Alabama 29, LSU 20. I have no issue whatsoever with any of those teams getting votes. South Carolina got 5 votes to win the league. Oklahoma got 3 with that brutal schedule we just talked about. Vanderbilt, got 2. Florida got 2. Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Auburn each got 1 vote, respectively, to win the Southeastern Conference. So,
yeah, Vanderbilt gets one every year because there's some media people gather together and they just do it as a running joke.
Yeah,
you know, to do it. So that obviously hurts the credibility of where everybody is finished. But I think it's, now that SEC Media Day is done, I do think it's kind of interesting, sort of the feel you have, right? Like, Kentucky doesn't exude confidence. If you watched anything that Mark Stoops did and you kind of hear him talk, that doesn't feel like, it feels like where they're at, right, Rob, based on the preview you did. And then, like, okay, it feels like they know that they've got a chance for it to be
really bad. Yeah.
The Auburn thing is fascinating, and seeing Hugh Freeze just in passing, I mean, that one is pretty, who knows what's going to happen there. But I mean, he was like, just felt like he was just rolling through the motions. Like it was like he looked
say it, Brent, like he was late for a tea time, right?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he looks like a guy. I tell you what he looks like, and this is not fair because I don't know, but it looks like a guy that that says, man, it was a lot easier at Liberty, and I was making about $5 million a year there. Like, what have I got? I mean, with the way everything is right now, sort of what have I got myself into? And Auburn's an interesting place because they're generally really good or not very good. There's not a whole lot of middle ground with Auburn, and there's not a whole lot of patience at Auburn. Now, I think you have to have more patience if you're them than you've had because of what you're paying for people to not be there, Rob. But that one feels like it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, total outside looking in. Don't know it, man. But he looks like a guy that wishes he made it, stayed at his other job.
Yeah, I think that Oklahoma game is pretty fascinating for both those teams early in the year. I really do. Don't you think? I mean, I just, that one feels like a really pivotal game for both teams early in the season.
I feel like if Mateer hits, and I mean, I don't know how good Washington State's competition was last year, but man, his numbers were big time. If he hits, I mean, Oklahoma is going to be better than than
Just
10th.
stay healthy
Tennessee.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying if they were
And they've
healthy
got
all
some,
last year.
they've got some, issues at receiver and here and there. But man, they've recruited pretty dang good, on for the past 3 or 4 years. I mean, I know the record may not have shown it, but they've been up there. And if Mateer hits, Oklahoma is going to really be better than 10th in the SEC, even with that schedule.
Tennessee had 3 players named to the preseason All-SEC team. I won't spend a lot of time on this because, again, you think predicted order of finish is silly. 3 teams in preseason rankings, and you get to the bottom and you start running out of players because you don't know enough players around the league. That's kind of what we have going on here and every year. Let's see, Jamal McCoy, first team, Arian Carter, Boo Carter, third team. Anybody else should have made it. Maybe Miles Kitselman. I mean, any snubs here for Tennessee? I think that's maybe a defensive lineman, Bryson Eason, could have got thrown a bone there. But outside of that, I mean, I think it was about right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who all 3 of the tight ends are.
Well, the Stowers kid deserving for sure.
It's huge numbers. He's Vandy's leading receiver.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you just look at it off numbers,
Oscar Delp's the other one. Sorry,
but I was going to say the 2 kids at Georgia are probably better than Eli Stowers.
And then the tight end at Texas, who I'm not familiar with. I don't know his game.
I just here's and again, this is my orange colored Vol glasses that you got on here. Knowing the importance of the tight end position in this offense every snap, I think having Miles Kitselman back on this team, a year better in this system, a year more confident with believing he can play here. I think Miles Kitselman is as valuable to Tennessee offensively as really about anybody on the roster. And I know it's crazy to say because we're talking about quarterback and you're trying to replace Dylan Sampson and somebody's got to show up at the wide receiver position. And I mean, David Sanders has got to hit it right tackle and Lance Hurd's got to be better. But when you think about how important the tight end position is, and that's a position the last 2 seasons has 88 catches at that position. Rob, I think you could go the 90s and not put together 88 catches for the tight ends over a 10-year period.
Jason Witten didn't have 88. He's in the Hall of Fame. He didn't have 88 catches in his career.
Right. And so, I mean, they use the tight end in a variety of ways. They obviously found the 2 tight end set this past year. I think the versatility of Kitselman, I think Kitselman is the best tight end by far that Tennessee's had under Josh Heupel. And look, they found some stuff with Princeton Fant, right? And they've done some things. But Kitselman's by far the most complete guy they've had at tight end. And his leadership, I think Miles Kitselman is of extreme importance to this team. Now, is he one of the top 3 tight ends? Well, how are you going to judge the tight end position? Nobody's going to look at that when you're picking all SEC and go, well, he plays every snap and he's also can block and he can catch and he's Mr. Versatile. No, they're going to look at the stat sheet, right?
Yeah.
He's not a big receiver playing tight end that they flex out and throw it to him a bunch. He is a very complete tight end. That's why I think the NFL is really going to like him if he stays healthy come combine time, because I think that everybody's going to go, okay, that guy can do everything we need a tight end to do in a National Football League.
On the tight end note, heading into fall camp and knowing there's been some injuries there, who's got the leg up to be the third tight end, if you will? And I know it's like nobody's rooting for third place, but if you have 3 tight ends, you can go 12 personnel. Is it Cole Harrison? Is it Van Dorselaer? Is it one of the Deshaun Brame? I mean, who's that third tight end right now before camp starts?
I think it's going to ultimately be one of those freshmen. And the question is going to be, Brame has put on weight. So where is Brame from a physicality standpoint?
Yeah.
I think it's easier. I think the transition's easier for Van Dorselaer because I think it's easier for him to play in space than it is for a guy who's used to playing in space
to
learn to be an inline blocker. I think the growth, and maybe I'm wrong on this. Jump in here and tell me if I'm wrong on this, both of you. But I think it's easier for Kitselman to learn how to run routes and catch passes than it has been for Ethan Davis to learn how to block at this level.
Yeah,
being a big wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in some ways, from a physical standpoint, the transition is easier for Van Dorselaer to come in and help because I think he can handle the physicality of it quicker than Deshaun Brame, even though Brame's probably better in space. Now, I think the reality is both of them play, and both of them are probably going to play about an equal number of snaps, and they'll probably be 3A and 3B, if you will, assuming that the top two stay healthy. But I think you're going to see a lot of those freshmen. I think you're going to see those freshmen over Cole Harrison,
Is
in my opinion.
Is this well? Maybe it's not because you said 3A, 3B, but is it comparable to freshman year Joshua Josephs and James Pierce, where Van Dorselaer might be ready now, like more ready now, and is going to be a good player, but Deshaun Brame could have the higher upside?
It's a great point. Yeah, and there's probably, I mean, there may be something to that. You know, I mean, I think the question is development. You know, how do those guys develop? I think with James Pierce, everybody knew from a talent standpoint that Pierce had more raw ability than Josephs did. Just a quick twitch, first step, all those things. The explosiveness was better than Josephs was. For James, it was about maturity and about knowing to go to work every day and understanding all of those things more than it was, you know, Josephs is more physical than James Pierce is. It was Josephs was more kind of showing up every day, a little more mature about how he went about his business. For James, it took a longer time for that adjustment. And obviously, based on the NFL draft, some people think he still hasn't made that adjustment completely, right? But I think it was more about that for Pierce than it was maybe physically catching up or that type of thing. You know, I mean, I think Van Dorselaer, because he played a lot of defense, you know, and I think Brame played more kind of bigger receiver stuff. There's a difference in physicality between those two that not exactly apples to oranges with Pierce and Joseph. But to your point, yeah, I mean, I think there is a little bit of something there because I think everybody looks at Brame's upside and says, man, he can be a really explosive, whereas Van Dorselaer may be more Miles Kitselman.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yeah.
we'll see. I think the X factor, Rob, at the tight end position is this Ethan Davis deal. Is he new and improved? How much of a step has he really taken under the direction of Miles Kitselman? And can he stay healthy? If he can, and he hits, as I mentioned in the tight end preview earlier in the week, I think the tight end position takes on a whole different look if Ethan Davis is a real factor game in and game out as a tight end to go with Miles Kitselman.
I mean, it's now or never, right? I mean, either it happens this year. He's, you know, the projections just he was not able to make the transition from being a jumbo wide receiver to a tight end because athletically, talent. I mean, it's all there. But I mean, to sum up what you're talking about, I think it's easier for those guys to, you know, the big guys to learn how to, you know, play in space than a guy to move, you know, from out the slot to come in and start banging in the run game.
I think obviously the theme for Tennessee at SEC Media Day was this team got slapped with adversity in the middle of April, and this team has come together and they've grown from it and they've bonded closer together and all that. And all that's great, and that's what you want because, I mean, a good culture deals with adversity a whole lot better than a team or a locker room that doesn't have a good culture in place. Does it equate to wins? Not necessarily. But that was kind of the running theme for Tennessee and Atlanta last week. What are some other – how's the offseason been for Tennessee essentially? I mean, you are a week away from going into fall camp to you know, the strength coaches are handing off the baton right now. They're about to go that last, you know, leg of the 4x1. What's been the theme for Tennessee football right now? Where is this team? And, you know, outside of injuries where, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, looks like Jamal McCoy is really the only big one still out there. Team's pretty healthy right now.
They do. Now, we'll see. I mean, we've said that the last couple of years, and there's been a what they call them, soft tissue injury. I call them muscle pulls. They've had some late July muscle strains, so you want to be really careful and finish out this week and hand that baton off as cleanly as you can. You know, I think for me, the theme of this offseason, my takeaway from this team this offseason is not we've worked harder than we've ever worked before and kind of the standard lines out there. My takeaway in talking to Kitselman, talking to Arion Carter, both in media settings and just in casually, you know, having conversation with them, walking down the hall or bumping into somebody on campus or whatever. I think my biggest takeaway is that this team was mad in April, at the end of April. They were mad at what happened and the way the way Nico left. And I think the takeaway from the leadership council and the leaders on this team was we have to get closer together. Like we have to draw closer and be a closer team. So Arion Carter has spent time going to dinner with wide receivers and offensive linemen. And he's not just in the linebacker bubble, and I think the leadership's takeaway from this, particularly in the day and age we're living in right now, where it's very easy to be about yourself with the transfer portal and you can move and all those things. There's been a real point to try to make it not about yourself, but about the bigger piece of the pie. As you mentioned, Eric, does that equate to wins? I don't know. Does it help you during adversity? Maybe. I mean, we'll see. But that's my big takeaway is that this team feels a little more united. They feel closer, and talking to them, they believe that they're closer than they've been the last couple of years. Again, we'll see what that equates to. But I take more stock in that than I do the whole we've worked harder than we've ever worked deal. Because I think we all had questions, Rob, about the leadership of this football team. Because when what happens to you in April happens, somebody has to take the reins. Okay, and look, Tennessee brought who to the podium at the end of spring?
Kitselman
and Carter. And basically at that point, whether they wanted it or not, Rob, they were anointed the alpha male of the team. One on offense, one on defense. Those were kind of the two guys. Now, they brought the quarterbacks in, but it was the two spokesmen for the team on that day were Arion Carter and Miles Kitselman. And I think both of them have taken that to heart from a leadership standpoint. And you can hear that message in their actions and not just in what they've said. Guys hanging out, multiple position guys hanging out with each other, different things like that. I think that's been important for this team. And I think this team's leadership is better than I thought it would be because I wasn't sure what kind of team they would be from a leadership standpoint. I mean, can a tight end carry the leadership of an offense? Hard to say, but it certainly feels like Robbie's doing it right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a weird year just because from the standpoint of, a lot of weird stuff happens, in college athletics these days. But, when you're expected to have a multi-year starter, back or at least a returning starter, upperclassman back at quarterback, and you're closing spring that way, and then boom, they pull the rug out. It doesn't happen. That's a transfer portal era, specific development that just wouldn't happen 10 years ago. And so it's weird. And yeah, I mean, it started that day. And I mean, I think Kitselman especially, I mean, Arian's a different kind of cat. He's quieter, but super intelligent, and you can tell just intense and really conscientious. But Kitselman is older, and just you can tell he was handling that stuff in stride. And I think Arian is just, you go back and the way William Inge talked about Arian going back to last preseason. I mean, it was pretty clear, what the coaching staff, thought about Arian then. So I'm not surprised to see those two guys, stepping up. But Hubbard, you're right. It's weird to not have that be a quarterback, and especially, and that certainly could develop. I mean, as we go in, but at this point in the offseason, it's weird to not have that one of those guys be a quarterback.
And there needs to be some others emerge, right? I mean, there can be an alpha, don't get me wrong, but you got to have some help if you're trying to be a leader of a team, a leader of a unit. And, look at last year. I mean, Dylan Sampson was the vocal guy, the rah-rah guy. I mean, he was loud. I mean, you had Cooper Mason there. Everybody followed his lead. I mean, Brew McCoy was a lead-by-example type guy. None of those guys are here anymore. Now you have Miles Kitselman on the offensive end, and from a leadership standpoint, I mean, who knows? They've got to emerge. Defensively, you got a couple more, Bryson Eason, Jackson Moy, Jeremiah Tielander's been around, for a while, and, some guys in the secondary as well. So it'll be interesting, but certainly to what you said, Brent, I mean, they were, whether they wanted to or not, I mean, they didn't even play in the orange and white game. I mean, they came out there in street clothes, and they were like, all right, let's go. Hit me with the Nico questions. We're the spokesman for the program right now. I mean, that they kind of took that baton, I keep using that phrase, and ran with it, and they've done a really, really good job. And they did a great job at SEC Media Days. I thought
Kitselman was extremely candid. I mean, just really candid about everything. He grew weary of the Nico stuff at the end. He was, he was walking off a podium, and I said, "Have you had enough of those questions?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've answered really all I need to answer about that because I don't need to say anything else." He was ready to move on, and he had handled them all great the entire day, but he had been pretty clear and pretty candid about things. And I think, the interesting part for this team now is the quarterback deal. Who's going to win this job? And I think because Josh Heupel has come out and declared it an open competition, which I think it is, and it should be. It's got to go to the guy who performs the best in fall camp, and everybody can sort of prognosticate and have their favorite. And clearly, there's a lot of guys on this team that like Joey Aguilar, right? I mean, he's come in and handled himself the right way, Rob, and kind of ingrained himself in the team without being this, I'm in charge type deal. But now he's got to go win it, because in covering college football for a long time, you can't get this decision wrong. If you get it wrong, if the team feels one way and you go another way, it ends really, really bad.
However, come on, say it. Cite the example.
Well, it's the 2005 season. I mean, listen, I like Eric Ainge, okay, but Eric Ainge got outplayed the entire fall camp. And now the difference was he was anointed by Fulmer at SEC Media Days that year. I think Fulmer's quote was something to the effect of, he reminds me of a guy that wore 16 for us at Tennessee.
And he'd also played some really
he had won at Georgia. He had beaten Florida. Like, he had played well until he got hurt. And then Rick Clausen came in and rallied him at the end, had the big win over Texas A&M, and he believed he should be the guy. And those two guys duked it out, and everybody you talked to said Clausen played better in August. In every scrimmage, he practiced better. And because Fulmer kind of left it open-ended, even though he said that about Ainge, he kind of left it open-ended in fall camp, it created a problem with the team, because the team didn't feel like the guy who performed the best ended up being the starter. And that team in 2005 was just a mess. Great defense, but they were just talented. Super talented team, and they were just a mess. So you got to, if it's open competition, if it's true competition, as you've declared it, it has to be a true competition. You can't have a predetermined winner in an open competition, because you better make the decision based on the results, and not on what you think the results should be. Now, you can play two, right? You can go in and not declare somebody anything and play two, but if you declare a starter and somebody is your guy, they better be the guy that won the job, so to speak. Now, in 92, Heath Schuler and Jerry Colquitt duked it out in fall camp, and in a lot of ways, Jerry was better in scrimmages and better in his decision-making. So Tennessee made the decision, we're going to go in and play two early in the season. Colquitt threw more passes in the opener against Robert Peace's dad's team than Heath Schuler did. And in that Georgia game that I wrote about, Jerry played two series by design in the second quarter. They were rotating quarterbacks until the half, and then Heath won it on the field at that point. And he had the whole team behind him. And that competition took care of itself based on the results in game. You can go about it that way, or you can declare it early. And if you declare it early, you better declare it with the guy who actually won the job.
Because then you could go into a situation where, you pull, and Jackson Arnold should have been the starting, back to Oklahoma again, right? Jackson Arnold should have been the starting quarterback the entire time, but they pulled him in the Tennessee game because that freshman came in and ran on Tennessee's 2s and 3s, got a couple touchdowns. Then they went with him for the last couple of games, and it's like, what are you doing? They bring Jackson Arnold back in. He beats Alabama in November. You open yourself up for, well, should it be this guy? Should it be that guy? When should you pull that guy? And Heupel's already had one of these situations, but it was Joe Milton, right, Brent, that outperformed Hendon Hooker in August of 2021.
Yeah, and then obviously Joe got hurt, and then Hendon showed everybody he was a gamer. And listen, for all of the conversation you don't want to about Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton, Joe Milton handled that situation better than anybody did. He never raised the stink. He got Wally Pipp, right? That's what happened to him. And he was a good teammate all the way through. And I will I give Joe Milton all the credit in the world because he could have publicly pouted, he could have done whatever he wanted to do, and he didn't because of the leadership and the relationship he had with Hendon. Those two guys worked well together and had a really good rapport. That's unusual. You don't have that all the time.
Highly unusual.
I mean, and so I give Joe Milton a ton of credit because for as much as Hendon draws the praise for, hey, he didn't pout and quit when he didn't win the job and in preseason. I mean, Joe Milton won it, lost it, and never pouted about not getting it back, and then stayed and played the next year. Hats off to Joe Milton. A lot of character showed by him and how he handled that whole situation.
He chose Tennessee twice. He chose to come here and then he chose to stay here.
Yep, he did. Hats off to Joe. I mean, because he handled it really well, very maturely.
Looking forward to fall camp getting going next week. Media day coming up, and then, of course, the start of practice. We'll have all you covered right here at Volquest.com with daily practice reports, highlight videos, and more as fall camp gets underway. Real quick before we say goodbye, let's shift gears to basketball. Rob Lewis, the scholarship counter is full. Tennessee goes out and gets its second international prospect of the cycle. Eitan Borg is coming in, a combo guard. He committed to the University of Tennessee on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, not just us, but I mean, everybody that follows Tennessee felt like they wanted to add, a veteran guard at some point to the roster this summer. He's coming in late, so getting acclimated is going to be tough, but he's also an older guy, so it's not like you're getting an 18-year-old kid, here right before August starts and really hoping, to get him up to speed. I mean, this is a grown man. He's played a couple of years of professional basketball. Heck, he served in the military for a couple of years. So I don't think getting up to speed in a college basketball program physically is going to be much of a deal. Mentally getting acclimated to what they're doing after the team's been together for a couple of months, maybe. But I think the staff's excited. I mean, just a big, strong guy and mature. I mean, just somebody that, you talk about, you don't worry about this guy translated to SEC from a physical standpoint. He's I would call him a combo guard, depth, immediate help from depth purposes, and I think that was the main thing. And we're still unclear, Hubbard. I don't know what you've heard on eligibility. I think they're thinking he's going to possibly have a couple of years at least, not just a 1-year guy,
right?
And so that adds to how valuable he's going to be. But this year it's going to be. I'm going to be really interested to see how quick he gets up to speed. But man, he's a really intriguing piece of the puzzle just because his age, his versatility, and how physical he is as an older guy.
Yeah, I think at least 2 years of eligibility, the possibility of 3 years of eligibility with him. So we'll see how that exactly shakes out. I do wonder this, Rob, and maybe it's the physical nature. Maybe it's just who the guys had been. But Rick Barnes at Tennessee has had pretty good success at getting guards ready in a hurry for whatever reason. Zakai arrived late and ended up playing. Now he split time, right? But he went from the guy who was going to redshirt to being a real factor as a freshman. Santi comes in out of the blue, right, and steps in at midterm and plays. I guess Kevin Punter was a summertime arrival. Was he early summer?
No, he was a Donnie Tyndall holdover.
Okay, he was a holdover.
So he was a brand new to Rick.
Okay, but I mean, for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe there's nothing to this. It feels like they've had the ability to get young backcourt guys, ready really fast. And part of that's, I know, the physicality and the nature of the game when you're transitioning in the SEC in the front court as diverse to the backcourt. But I mean, Rick's such a guard guy, right? I mean, don't you think that's a little easier for backcourt guys to transition?
Based on the body of work, yeah. I mean, what he has shown, I would agree. And this guy's just he's gonna. Everybody's still got to see him, meet him, see what he's like. But this guy's a different animal than you're talking about. Santi coming in from the NBA Academy in Australia as an 18, 19-year-old kid. Zakai just graduating high school and rolling in August. So I mean, this dude's a 22, 23-year-old grown man. So I think Rick's got a lot more to work with here than even the instances you're talking about, where he basically the Zakai thing is amazing in retrospect. I mean, Santi too, but that was a team that wasn't really going anywhere. I mean, Zakai played a bunch on a good basketball team that won the SEC tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I remember interviewing Rick at media day. He and I were sitting there talking, and he just looked at me. He goes, "He's going to play," and I was like, and we're just
Oh,
sitting there
I
talking
can
after
remember
the
him
interview,
in
and I'm like,
August.
"He's not." Do what?
He was like the cat that ate the canary in August when you first got him on campus. Like,
Yeah.
stuck it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he was like, he's gonna, and I'm like, he's not gonna play, right? I mean, you got a 5-star point guard, where he goes, I'm telling you, he's gonna play. I mean, he's really gonna play. And I mean, look, I mean, he played. I mean, Kennedy Chandler he gave the ball to as a freshman, right? So I mean, it seems like Rick is plenty comfortable with newcomers in the backcourt. Is my point. And then I do think you throw in the fact this is a guy who's played against other grown men, so the physical transition, as you mentioned, should not be a challenge. One would think he could he could step in and make an impact and be a heavy part of the rotation and not just a depth piece, if you will.
Yeah,
And so I just would be curious to see kind of what the feedback on him is in September after he sort of gets settled in a little bit and kind of figures out which way's up and what's going on. Because I mean, it is a serious transition to be making for him culturally and everything else. But Tennessee has a history of being able to do that.
And I will also say, I mean, not just with this young man, but I think you're going to see a lot of this where you see guys that have played a year or two overseas, but made it on a very high level that come over here because of the NIL now. I mean, they can make more money in NIL than they can at a lower level. I mean, that's what Masamba is. Masamba's in a similar situation. I think I think that's going to become very common.
And I think that's fascinating that basketball is completely okay with this.
It makes it one more step removed from when we grew up going to get the Sports Illustrated out of the mailbox every Thursday, Hubbard.
Yeah, I mean, here are guys, and I'm happy for them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, here are guys who have played professional, made money, and they're granted immediate eligibility. But then we have Alberto who's not given immediate eligibility for basically no plausible reason.
And again, he could play at Division II, just can't play at Division I.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's all crazy, kind of what they're allowing international basketball guys to do. And I think you're right, Rob. I mean, if you're playing overseas and you're not the top dog on your overseas team or one of the top 2 guys, you're not making real money. Now you can come to the States. You can make some money. You don't have any expenses, right? I mean, and now you're getting much more exposure and development for potential to make it, potentially to the NBA at some point. I mean, I'm with you, Rob. I think a lot of these guys playing a couple of years over there go, hey, I'm going to go take my shot. Why not take your shot?
Yeah, and I mean, nobody's making millions over there, but I'll tell you another thing that nobody thinks about. I guarantee you that when Tennessee flies to Las Vegas and plays in this tournament in November, he's going to be traveling better than any team. Anytime the Tel Aviv Pelicans took off and took a bus trip to go get somewhere for a weekend.
Yeah, well, and when he goes to come home and walks out of the locker room and there's a full course meal for him, and then he goes and gets on the plane and there's another pizza or there's a bag full of Chick-fil-A sandwiches or whatever. I mean, those guys eat like kings anyway. I mean, like
all of his Tennessee gear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total different life, and so I do think there'll be a lot of international guys, particularly if a couple of these guys have success. Rob, I do think it'll be something that a lot of international guys continue to look at.
Will further. I mean, it's not high school recruiting is never going to go away, but it's going to further put that on the back burner for a lot of programs.
That's a great question. I know we're about out of time here, but I am curious as to what you think. I mean, is high school recruiting going to become go get a project guy and see what he can do in a year or two and take your chances on trying to develop him and then focus much of your rev share, NIL, whatever on established transfers, or maybe you go recruit one big name type guy instead of trying to load up with 2 or 3 like we've seen in years past.
I think people are figuring it out, Hubbard. And I think I think it is fascinating. And, a couple of the stories we did last month on some of the young guys on Tennessee staff, Scott Daughtry and Lucas Campbell. I mean, they're in the weeds with this stuff, and that's kind of what they're dealing with. I mean, what is the perfect mix? Is it How much homegrown versus transfers. Personally, to me, I don't know that Rick hasn't articulated this to me, but it feels to me like what Tennessee is doing is going after a native mint level guy, and they'll if they're in on it, they'll allocate resources that way. And then they're going to go after a bunch of Amari Evans, Troy Henderson's guys that are good players, or real something that are developmental, solid guys who are here 3 or 4 years, and then beef it up in the transfer portal. But I don't. When Rick's here, they're never going to stop trying to develop kids and having that core. But I think everybody's still figured out what the mix is, and then you add in 15 scholarships. I mean, it gives you more flexibility.
Yeah, the makeup of this team, Rob, and that's what I was going to ask you here to end things. I mean, now that the roster's set, right? I mean, you've got 3 transfers, 2 international guys, 4 returners, and 4 high school guys. I think that math's in the end there.
And I don't know what everybody looks like, but I bet 4 returners and 4 high school guys. I would bet that's pretty high, but I don't know. I bet 4 returners is pretty high percentage wise. When you go 4 for 4 on returners, what I'm saying, I bet that's insanely high.
It's just wild too, because again, like it hits so different in basketball. I mean, the transfer portal hits every sport. Don't get me wrong, but like it's in basketball, you are really hitting a reset every single year. It's just wild, and to see the way, and you said it several times, Rob. I mean, Rick Barnes loves this part of it, assembling a team, kind of up, against the clock there, assembling a team, kind of getting it all together there at the end of the season, and just hitting go and starting over. I think that's something that he enjoys and something that it makes him want to continue to coach.
For sure.
Well,
he's been good at it.
Yeah, I started to say, I think your feeling on it is different if you don't hit.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you hit on a lottery pick, basically.
Yeah, Chaz wasn't bad either.
And I mean, you've gone out and gotten 2 guys, and there's been more, but you've gotten 2 superstars that have been really good players who have fit your culture perfectly, who have become the focal point of what you're doing. Like, that's a pretty insane success rate, Rob. I mean, and because of that, I think Rick has gotten them. Okay, not that we have the magic formula that nobody else has, but we can make this thing work. And
and the other side of that is, you don't think that the players out there haven't recognized it?
Yeah,
I mean, this is an attractive place to come now. I mean, I'm not saying Tennessee doesn't recruit anybody, but a lot of times they're starting off on second base, with these kids looking for a home.
Well, don't you think the same thing, Eric, has happened in baseball? I mean, how much is, I'm not saying Tony Vitello and his staff don't have to recruit in the transfer portal because they're beating out other teams, but how much of an advantage do they have in getting the attention of a transfer because Chase Dolander's in the show as a transfer? Liam Dole just got picked in the top 10 picks of the draft as a transfer. Right? I mean, how many of those do they have that you can say, hey, come here, we develop, okay? We're going to take your already proven game and we're going to enhance it to the point that your draft stock is high and you're going to make more money, okay? I think for both Rick Barnes and for Tony Vitello, that transfer portal success does give you an upper hand on some people. I think people in the portal go, well, if Tennessee's interested, I want to listen to Tennessee because of Dalton Connect, because of Chase Dolander, Chaz Lanier, Liam Dole, because of the results of those guys transferring in. I would be crazy not to look at Tennessee for a year.
Case in point, I mean, Tennessee had 4 transfers. 3 of them went in the first round, 1 went in the second round, just made $1.8 million yesterday. I mean, like, what more evidence do you need? And really, if you want to look at the last 2 drafts, the 2024 theme was homegrown. Burke, Semo, Beam, so on and so forth. Dylan Dreiling. I mean, all those guys they got out of high school. So, there's only a handful of teams in baseball that where it's like, okay, well, if this team shows interest, yeah, I'm going to listen. That's Tennessee now, LSU, Arkansas, Texas. There's some others obviously too, but yeah, I mean, they've had so much success in the transfer portal that they're right in the middle, right in the thick of it, of any conversation of any player that they want.
Yeah, I'll give the University of Tennessee credit and the coaches at Tennessee. I don't know that there's many athletic departments in the country that have embraced the portal better than this athletic department has embraced the portal. When you look at the help they're getting. I mean, the Lady Vols, obviously, because the new coach is coming in. I mean, that's a portal laden team. I think Tennessee's handled the portal as well as anybody in the country, and a lot of people are doing good work in the portal. But I think when you look at it across sports, I think Tennessee has done a terrific job of of using the portal the right way and getting success out of the portal that is making portal life easier for them than it was early on. I think it's easier for Tony Vitello in the portal now than it was 3 years ago when he first started working in the portal. I think the same for Rick Barnes as well.
Yep. Portal is going to play a massive role for Tennessee basketball this season, Tennessee baseball next spring, and of course there's a lot of big-time portal additions for Tennessee football as well. Football starts in years past, not necessarily this offseason. There's a couple, but Tennessee football.
Colton Hood's a big one.
Yeah, Colton Hood is a massive one, that is for sure. Might have a couple on the offensive line as well. So Tennessee football beginning fall practice, not spring practice, next week, and we're going to have daily coverage for you over at Volquest.com on the Journal's Quarters, and of course the highlight reels, all that and more. If you're listening to us, appreciate you. If you're watching us on YouTube, we thank you. You're not a member of the site, better link up now. Fall camp's getting going, and we're going to have news and notes every single day on the board. We already have them right there right now, so go check us out over at Volquest.com and on the Journal's Quarters. Link up with us right now before football season officially begins. We'll be back on Thursday for the mailbag edition of the show. For Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, I'm Eric Kane. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Tuesday morning Volquest podcast.